If you've been building your AI agents in GHL and using workflows and found that your AI seems to repeat itself, goes in loop, doesn't know how to end a conversation properly, I want to show you two things that I have done in my workflows that have helped me stop this. But first, a bit of context. So I was running a database reactivation campaign for a client using SMS. And there are a couple of things that I was seeing, as the AI was doing its thing and it was having conversations with people. And the first was how it handled emoji responses. And this was not something that I was expecting, but there were users who came through and they were like, okay, like it or love a message from the AI. And that actually sent the whole message back into GHL. And the AI flipped out, was like, I'm so confused. You've just sent the same message back to me. And so it then sent its previous message and it just got into this loop. It's like, I don't know how to handle this. So that's the first thing I'm going to take you through. The second is the end of a conversation. You may have put something in the prompt of, have a nice day, thanks very much, hope to see you soon. But if the user then responds to that and says, thanks, you too, the AI may pick that up and go, okay, I need to write another reply here. What do I write? And so it starts to repeat itself, or there's that continuing, or that potential continuing of a conversation where it's not really needed. So that's the second thing I'm going to show you, and some of the changes that I've made in my workflows. First though, I just want to show you that situation of the emoji responses. You can see on my screen here, this is a conversation inside GHL for a contact record. And you can see this is the message from the AI. Pass your request on to the team, can't guarantee the exact time. Response from the user, they liked it. It gave an emoji response to the SMS message. And so what actually came back into GHL was liked, I'll pass your request to the team, and then the rest of the message. So previously, before I made these workflow changes, the AI was like, yeah, I don't know how to handle this. This is, you're repeating almost the message back to me. And so it would then say the same thing again, hoping to try and get a different response. So in the workflows that I am using to record the responses from contacts, I've made a couple of changes, and that's the first thing that I want to show you. So keep in mind, we've got liked here as the start of a message that's come back from the user. I'll switch to the view here of the workflow. Now previously I was using the curly brackets, the message.body, to store all of the message that came back from the user. And that's where the AI was then looking through the conversation history and saying, liked, and then the message, but hang on, that's the message that I sent you to the, I'm sending you the contacts and you've just sent it back to me, and that's where it would get confused. So now what I've got instead is I've got this part of the workflow with a sort of a branching setup, and it's looking for those key words, I guess is the easiest way to put them. They're the emoji responses, the words for those emoji responses that we saw in the message on the contact a minute ago. So I now have a branch. If the contact replied, and the message from the contact contains liked or loved, here's a branch. There's another branch if the message from the contact contains questioned. So if their emoji response was like question mark, okay, what do I want to do with that person? Let's give a specific branch to them. And so if it can detect that the message.body, which is what we're referencing with the replied message here, if it contains those things, it's going to go down one of the two paths. If it doesn't contain those things, it's going to go through a normal path. So you can see if I look at the normal path here, when none of the conditions are met, I am using still the message.body. That's the full response that's come back from the contact, the message that they've sent me and into the AI. I will continue to use that. However, if the response from the contact has that liked or that loved or that questioned emoji, I don't want to store that full message.body. I want something else. And so I am now setting and almost being prescriptive of what does that update to the conversation history need to be. So if they've liked or loved as an emoji response, I'm just recording, yes, sounds good. So it's like a positive response. It's not the full message content that came back, because that's just a repeat of what the AI sent out. For the question one, I've got what do you mean question mark. So the AI can then understand that that's part of the conversation history, and it can craft a relevant response and send that to the contact. So this is what I have now put in place to handle the random emoji responses that you may get from contacts. If you're building your AI agents in workflows, this is one way that you can set it up, whereby it recognizes that those emoji responses have come in. It's recording something different in the conversation history and enables that conversation to continue flowing without the repeated looping of the AI not fully understanding how to respond to the message that the user has sent, where they've sent an emoji response. So that's the first thing I wanted to go through with you today. The second thing I wanted to go through with you today is how I now handle the end of conversations. So if I just close this window slightly and move the workflow. So I've got customer replied here. I've got a couple of different workflows where there's some messages being sent out, and so if the customer replies to any of them, they're going to come into this one. And what I'm doing is I'm now trying to determine where in the conversation that the AI and the contact are. Because if we think about a story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And therefore, if we're at the beginning or the middle, we want to continue the conversation. But if we can detect that we're towards the end of a conversation, we want to stop. We don't want to just get into that constant, thanks, thanks, see you soon, thanks, see you soon. And all those sort of ending messages, we want to send it once. And I tried doing this in the prompt and saying, you know, when the user confirms X, Y, and Z, or says, thanks very much, send one message, you know, a nice friendly reply, and sort of stuff like that. But because we have the workflow set up where it would loop, and it would add the contact back in to get a new message from the AI whenever they responded and that sort of stuff, it would often just try and keep going. Or it would have sent the message, had a response, and then it was like, oh, I've not had any new response. Maybe I need to send a bump message. So that's the other situation, is that it finished the conversation, but because there were some bumps set in the workflow and there's a time delay, it didn't receive any additional response. Therefore, 6 hours later or a day later, it sent a bump, but there was no need to send that bump. So what I have done instead now is I have an intent step. So I'm trying to see if ChatGPT can help me identify whether the conversation is in mid-flow based on the conversation history, or whether it feels like it's starting to close. So I have the ChatGPT step here and my prompt. So I am asking it, when you act as a world-class analyst, your job is to determine whether the conversation history suggests a conversation has ended. Example messages from the user might be, no, that's it, thanks, or all good for now. Conversation history is stored in this custom fields. Your output should be a single word, either closing, continue, or stop. If the conversation has ended or is ending, your output will be closing. But if the most recent messages from the AI and user suggest the middle of the conversation, your output will be continue. If the user has negatively responded to the first messages with no, stop, or the intent is that they don't want to continue the conversation, your output will be stop. Okay, so this ChatGPT step then is going to give me one word. It's either going to be continue, it's going to be closing, or it's going to be stop. And that then enables me to create some branches. So you can see I've got the conditions here. Let me close that. So the output of GPT-1, which is the step before in the workflow, is continue. If it's closing and does not include the tag, DBR convo closing, and I'll explain that in a minute. And then there's a second one related to closing, if it does include the tag, and then if there's one that is the word from the ChatGPT step is stop, I've got a branch for that. So what do each of these branches do? Well, if it's the continue, I want the AI to craft a new message that we're in mid-flow of the conversation. So it's going to go down into this path. It's going to do the emoji checks that I showed you earlier in this video. And then it's going to add to workflow for the AI to craft the next message in the conversation, because conversation is mid-flow. We should be continuing it. If the response is closing, the response from the ChatGPT step that detects that the conversation is ending, it will go down this path if it hasn't got the tag DBR convo closing. So then it's just going to send one set message. In this case, I've got, we hope to see you soon. It's going to add the tag DBR convo closing. So if, we think about it this way, if the conversation is closing and we then say, or we send them SMS message, we hope to see you soon, and the user replies to that and says, likewise, hope to see you soon, or thanks very much, have a great day, we don't necessarily want the AI to write another message. So this is where we've got the two steps. So the first step for closing, if ChatGPT can detect the conversation is closing, we send that preset message of we hope to see you soon and add the tag, because then if the user responds and says thanks, have a great week, the contact is going to go back through the workflows, but because they've then got the tag added, they're going to go into the next branch here, just closing now rather than closing start, and therefore we're not going to send them another message. That is the end of the conversation. We're actually going to remove them from the other workflows and stop everything there, and then we're going to remove the DBR convo closing tag in case, half an hour later or 2 days later the contact replies and asks a question. So there's the two steps there of conversation is ending, but it means that we don't get into that loop, because now we're saying this is a message I'm going to send you that ends the conversation. Even if the contact replies, I'm not taking a further action because I've got the tag in there and I'm not re-adding to any of the other workflows for the AI to create a message. If it gave the output of the word stop, so the ChatGPT step gave the output of the word stop, it's going to go down this path. I'm just removing from all the workflows so they get no more messages from the AI. And so this is how I am now using this workflow structure to have that nice end to a conversation. I could change the SMS here depending on the nature of the client or the conversation. It could be for DBR, it could be for something else. But what it enables me to do is to use ChatGPT to almost detect where within the conversation we are. If we're in the middle, continue the conversation. If it feels like we're at the end, we can see the conversation. We've asked all the questions, we've maybe sent a link, we've booked somebody in, whatever the AI has been trained to do, and what the contact has done in some of the other workflows. But if we can look through that conversation history, and ChatGPT can say, yeah, this pretty much looks like the end of a conversation, we're about to sign off, and be like, yeah, all the thank you, see you soons, is going to tell us that. We can use that to create the branch, send somebody through that, send them the one static message, and then even if they respond, we're not going to have the AI follow up. So it just gives that end of a conversation. So this video, we've gone through two things that I have added to my workflows for my AI agents in GHL. Specifically, I use this for a database reactivation campaign on SMS, but you can use it for other types of agents. Hopefully you found this useful and something that you can go and implement yourself for your workflow builds. And if you found this video useful, I'd love you to like it, subscribe to the channel, help make people aware of some of these tutorial videos that I am creating as I'm building my AI automation agency. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video.